everyone to Music Workshop's first sounding board. We are so excited that you're here. And my name is Amy Richter. I am the founder and executive director of Music Workshop. And while we're waiting for more people to join us, I will be introducing our Music Workshop team. I'm going to start off with Amy Hall. She wants to give a little wave to the camera. She is our director of communication and outreach. Dr. Giuliana Conti is our director of education and equity. Sarah Bost is our director of programming, and Amy Sloan is our program facilitator. And yes, if you were counting, 3 out of the 5 of us are named Amy's. So it's a little fun fact about Music Workshop. We have a lot of Amy's that work here.
We're collecting them.
Yes. So as I stated before, my name is Amy Richter. I'm the founder and executive director of Music Workshop. I started Music Workshop back in 2012 to create relevant, culturally responsive, music-empowered education to expose students to the world of music so that they can start exploring their own musical paths. Our program was launched in schools in 2013 with our first course being jazz in 10 schools located in Portland, Oregon. And since then, we have expanded to a global reach in over 102 countries, educating students in over 14,000 schools. So our growth has been incredible. And we are just so happy that you are with us today. And we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us today to learn more about Music Workshop and really great things that we can provide to you that will hopefully make your school year run a little bit smoother. But before we get started, we wanted to ask you to provide us with a few things in the chat if you so desire. We would love to know, where are you from? What subject or grades do you teach? And if you are a teacher of Music Workshop, what is your favorite course, or what are your favorite courses? We would love to hear from you. Thank you again for being here. We also have, just a reminder, we have educators that have multiple disciplines joining us today. So we will be covering resources that can be taught in all sorts of classroom settings. So with that, I am going to hand this over to our Director of Programming, Sarah.
Thank you so much for that, Amy, and thank you, teachers, for spending an hour with us this afternoon. Giuliana, do you mind going to the next slide for me? I just wanted to run you through what we're going to be covering in this hour. We do have the chat enabled, and so you're welcome to chat with each other. You may actually run into somebody here that you already know. And we also are going to be utilizing the Q&A feature, which is down below, very close to where the chat is. So that's going to be later in this webinar to let you ask some questions to us. You can actually upvote. So if somebody already asks a question that you're interested in, you can indicate that you are also interested in having us answer that question as well. So Amy has told us a little bit about Music Workshop. We are going to share some things with you that hopefully you can use right off the bat in your school year, including some new offerings from us that we're really excited to talk to you about. I will actually take us through giving you hopefully some new, fresh ideas for how to present our courses to your students. And then Giuliana is going to take us through student and teacher well-being, including our new professional development courses. So we will present for just a bit to you, and then we will move into our Q&A session where we can try to answer your burning questions. I want to let you know that at the end of this webinar, we will be putting a survey in the chat. just in the last few minutes. It's a very quick survey. The main reason for that is so that if you would like to receive a certificate of completion at the end of this course that you could turn into your school district for a clock hour, we want to be sure to get your name and email address so that we can send that to you shortly. We will also have a spot in that survey where if you had a question and we ran out of time and you'd like to get it answered, you can put it in there and we'll get back to you by email. We will also have a handout that will be available for you in the chat at the end of the webinar as well. So I think we'll go ahead. Oops, we've got someone raising their hand. Maybe perhaps if you want to put a question in the chat and Amy Sloan can take a look at that, or a question in the Q&A, we will be able to help with that. Giuliana, can you move us to the next slide?
Okay. So one of the areas of request that we get a lot from teachers is, how do I connect with my students at the beginning of the school year in an age-appropriate way where they can get to know their students a little bit better, as well as share a little bit about themselves with their students? And we know as teachers that one of the best ways to build investment in what we teach is when our students really feel validated by us and feel connected to what it is that we teach in the class. So what we're going to talk about really quickly is a Musical Me activity. Here you can see the example of the worksheet that we will be sending to you after this workshop that you can do with your students. And this is something that you can also personalize yourself. So if these questions don't match your needs for your classroom, that is okay. You can make it work for you. Some of the questions that we include in here are different areas of a student's musical life, which can give you insight into who they are. So some of those questions include, my favorite types or genres of music to listen to are, my current favorite song is, my favorite musical artists or band are. And in terms of age appropriateness, if you need to have a conversation about genres, this is a great entry point to that. Or you can just change it to, what music do you listen to that you like, or what have your parents shown you? We also go into musical memories in the second line. And then on the third line, what do you do when you listen to music? So I like to listen to music when I discover new music to listen to from, for example, friends or maybe a Spotify playlist. And listening to music makes me feel ... So here's the form, or here's the worksheet that you can give to your students that they can fill out in class, and then you can compile them. And part of the activity is introducing your musical self to your students by talking about the people and experiences that shaped you as a musician or you as a music appreciator, to discuss how your own cultural background shaped your musical preferences, perform for your students on your primary instruments or by singing, and talk about the music that you choose to perform for your students if that's how you want to share who you are, and then give your students an opportunity to ask questions. And so then once they fill out their version of the worksheet and they get to learn about you and your musical self, you can also extend the opportunity to share to students so that they can do a 2-minute get to know me music video or presentation. And you can even make that longer, and you can have a take-home activity where they work with their families and they bring materials into class to present about who they are musically. And then throughout the school year, what I encourage is that you're using these forms that they filled out with their musical interests, and maybe you make a playlist for your students so that when they enter the classroom, you choose music that was written down that's upbeat. Or if there's quiet time activities, then you can choose some of the songs or the artists that are maybe a little bit calmer. And you can even call out throughout the school year, do you remember at the beginning of the year when we filled this out? Well, this choice came from Susie, who talked about this artist. Do you still like this artist? Do you still like this song? And then as the school year goes on, you're building on top of your knowledge of your students to help them feel validated and included in your curriculum. You can even choose some of those songs that they write down to put into your programming for performances. because there's nothing like getting students to invest in what they're learning in class, especially when they really feel personally connected to it. It's also exciting when you can see commonalities across your students, where maybe they have an artist in common or a genre in common, and now that's another seed where you can choose that in different activities to really get them invested in other learning material as well. So these are just some ideas that you can use to start the school year off strongly by investing in your students' interest, by sharing about yourself, and by using Musical Me as a way to do some curriculum planning for your year so that you know when you teach your students that they're going to be connecting with your choices for curriculum. So now I'm going to pass it off to Sarah again to talk about our free curriculum.
So I'm assuming that many of you have already used some of our courses in your classroom. This is a current list of everything that we offer. I would like to draw your attention to the two areas in light blue, which are our upcoming courses that we're really excited about. One, which teachers have been begging us for, is hip hop. It's currently in the works, and it's going to be coming out around this October. I will warn you that your students will probably start breakdancing in the middle of some of those sections. So you might want to think about that, prepare for it, not becoming a contact sport. I know how the littles can be. We also will have South Asia coming out at the beginning, around the beginning of 2025. That's going to include India, Pakistan, Nepal, and also short stints in Sri Lanka and Bhutan. So one of the things I can say that I love about the Musical Me exercise or activity is that you get an immediate sense of what your students are really into. And that is the perfect segue into maybe the first music workshop course that you present to your students. If 75% of your kids love pop or love rock, then that's a great place to start to hit the ground running at the beginning of your school year for excellent engagement with your kids. Giuliana, if you'll move to the next slide for me, please. I was hoping to give you some, as I said, some fresh ideas for how to present music workshop courses to your students this school year. The cool thing about these courses is that there's no wrong way to present these, and you can present them in any way that works for you and your curriculum for the year. But we've grouped some of them together based on themes, and so I wanted to share that with you. I will let you know too that this will be, these course groupings we've combined into a handout for you, a PDF that we will put in the chat at the end of this webinar, so you don't have to scurry to write it down or grab some screen caps, because we will hand this out to you. So really, whether you're a general music teacher, or if you teach middle school or elementary school ensembles, or if you're a general ed teacher, hopefully some of these groupings will work really well in your setting. The first one is actually sort of the longest one that we have, American History and Sound. What's great about it is it's sort of a like a chronological travel through musical time in America. So this one would be excellent to do maybe like one per month throughout the school year. And then by the end of the year, you've covered a lot of the musical timeline. Another one that we have is Introduction to the Orchestra. So whatever activities you might do with your students, I know I always did like Peter and the Wolf or Benjamin Britten's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra. We have a number of courses that would work really well, including we have a number of Sound Waves concerts, so performances, live performances that we have videoed that we are adding into some of these. So make sure that you don't miss those as well. It's really nice to have the educational courses, but sometimes it's nice too to have a well videographed performance to show too. Another one we have, of course, we have plenty of rock and roll. We have a number of instruments that we've included in that work for rock and roll. Maybe you want to only use segments of those to show. And then we have a number of rock courses. And then we also have two of our Sound Waves concert series at the bottom there that fit into that category. We also have, this is something that, so I'm a former teacher and I regret that I never actually knew about Music Workshop whenever I was teaching elementary and middle school music, because I always love to teach a unit at the end of the year about careers in music, because I want to make sure that students understand that a career in music is not a path of either becoming a conductor, band director, teacher, or becoming like a concert violinist, but there are so many other opportunities out there for students, and I want them to be able to dream about that. So we've put together several things here that could work well as a unit for figuring out how to maybe have a career in music. So also, I put together, because I am a former band director, I wanted to make sure that we included something if you are an elementary or middle school band director or choir director or having any sort of ensembles that you lead, that we've got some stuff sort of packaged up there that works really well for you. We also have our culture series, of course, and we've grouped everything together here as well, including our upcoming South Asia. One of the things I love, if you haven't checked this out, is DJ Prashant, who fit into sort of like the Indian music category, but as a DJ, which is really cool. We have a great concert by him and also some cool materials that go along with that. So I will make sure that you receive this handout that has all of these in it if it's helpful to you. And I also wanted to put one final plug in for our Spotify playlists. I don't know if that's something you know about, but we do have a playlist for most of our courses. It's basically like a soundtrack for them. So if you and your students find something in that course that you really connect with and you want to hear the entire track, you're able to find that. You just go to Music Workshop's playlists on Spotify and you can save and use any of those.
And we definitely encourage, if you're seeing any of the cross-curricular connections here, if you're a music teacher and you're thinking, I know some general educators who would really love some of these connecting points to social studies or to language arts and to history, these are available to any teacher. They can sign up for Music Workshop for free and get these resources. We definitely encourage teachers from all disciplines to utilize our materials because they are made for music teachers in mind, but also for general educators in mind, so that they can be diverse and available to students across subjects. So thank you, Sarah. That was awesome.
Thanks for that reminder too, Giuliana. Yes.
Absolutely.
Giuliana,
Yes,
may I just make one more comment and
absolutely.
as it applies to our culture series, something that we've heard from a lot of our K-2 teachers is that our program needs to, especially within the culture series, needed to be altered a bit for the younger ages. So we are working on that, and those will start, the K-2 specific to the culture series will start launching this coming month, and we hope to launch one a month, and starting with the culture series, and then we'll work in our other courses that are in the different other categories that we have with our courses. But we wanted to let you know that we have heard the responses from teachers, the concerns, and we've worked with 2 advisory groups of teachers to really make this next offering something that's really an incredible fit for the K-2 student population. Thank you.
Definitely.
Just a teaser there, the very first K-2 course that we're going to put out is the music of Latin America and the Caribbean. So that'll be coming next month, as Amy said.
And I do believe that we have one of our participants who was part of our teacher advisory group, Colin. We're so happy to see you here and to have you join us. And you've made an invaluable contribution to our growth as a teacher who has given us your feedback. So thank you so much. We will also be seeking teachers for our new teacher advisory group coming this fall very soon. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested. It is a paid opportunity and we can't function without the support of our teachers. So we're just very grateful for everyone here. So hi, Colin. Okay, let's talk about our newest programming, which is the Music for Wellbeing Professional Development course. I'm very excited to say that we are launching the course for general educators in 2 weeks, and we will have a sneak peek availability of it for Music Workshop members only next week. So we have this course, it is 8 hours long, and you get professional development continuing education credits that come with a certificate of completion. And we are happy to work with you and your district and whoever it is that calculates your continuing education hours and whether or not hours counts. So if we can be helpful in that arena, definitely communicate with us as needed. The course is structured with 8 units, starting off with some of the fundamentals of well-being and music. We talk about the social, psychological, and physiological connection behind music and well-being. We then talk about student challenges with well-being and how student well-being can be heightened. Then we go into teacher well-being because, of course, if we don't take care of ourselves, who's going to be there to really take care of the students when they're in our classrooms? Then we go into pedagogical approaches, 3 of them specifically. We have student-centered teaching, trauma-informed teaching, and culturally responsive teaching. And so we talk about how those connect to well-being and how music can be used in those pedagogical approaches to support student well-being, as well as your own. Finally, we go into how to plan and apply what you've learned so far into your class so that you can teach for well-being, especially how music listening plays a part in that role. And we offer an entire unit that covers multiple resources that are free for teachers on student well-being, teacher well-being, and the several pedagogies that we cover, so that you really feel like you're leaving this course with tangible resources for your teaching. And then we go through some goal setting activities at the end so that when you are done with the course, you really know what your next steps are, because it can be a lot of information and it's really important information. So we want to make sure that you feel like it's personalized to you. One of the reasons why we created this course is that we did a poll of our membership and we had enough responses to know that with a 95% confidence rate, the teachers who serve our membership struggle to support their students' social emotional well-being post-COVID. 78% of our teachers agree with that statement. And so when we created our professional development course, we were thinking about ways that we could support our free programming. And we know that it's new in Music Workshop to be charging for a service like this, but we do use and apply most of our income from professional development into our free curriculum. So as we spread the word about professional development and support teachers in this PD for music and well-being, we are also able to create more free programming courses sooner. And to us, that is extremely exciting because that means that as an organization, we are growing really quickly. So I encourage you to check it out. We'll talk a little bit right now about some of the fundamental pieces of well-being for students that are included in the course so that you know some basic tenets of it that you can take with you to your classroom starting this school year. The first one is that student choice and agency really matter. So looking back at that Musical Me activity, when you're asking students questions about themselves and their musical interests, what you're really giving them is space to be themselves, express themselves, and give them choice over what they share in the classroom, and hopefully eventually what they're able to learn in the classroom. Because then if you take their responses and you give them options to choose from, then they feel more invested in their learning experience. And this definitely connects to students' musical interests, because as we know, students are musical. Music is everywhere. And you go to the grocery store, you get in the car, there's music. And we know that with accessibility to technology for our students, it means that they may be more musical than we might assume when they come into our classrooms, because they have access to a world of Apple Music, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, just SoundCloud, Bandcamp, endless available resources and music. So it's really important that, given how musical they already are in their personal life, that we tie that into our classroom, because that will help them feel validated and experience positive emotions in class when they really feel seen for their musical taste. And that goes into incorporating music listening into your classroom. Music listening research has shown us how invaluable it is to our development as people, into how we express ourselves, into how we connect with other people. So by incorporating music listening more in class, you're giving more opportunities for students to explore new music, which goes into musical discovery, and to strengthen their sense of self by their music choices. So these 4 principles give space for students to be themselves, share themselves, explore more about their own interests, and connect with each other and you and the material by really feeling connected to what space you give them in class, to make some choices about their own learning. And these principles can carry over into a general education classroom as well, where we're talking about incorporating music either in the background through passive listening, or in the foreground by assigning homework or activities that allow for music listening playlists to be created, or to share music listening taste with each other. There's many ways that music listening and music as a whole can be incorporated in your teaching. And research shows us that this is a really important piece of students feeling safe at school, feeling seen and heard, and ultimately supporting their well-being. Here is some evidence that is in research on music and cognition and psychology and sociology. So we have learned in the research world that music enhances really important elements like students' curiosity and empathy, resilience, vulnerability, and open-mindedness. And I'll give you a minute or a few seconds to read this so that you can see the list on your own. And I would encourage you, as you read through this list, think about what jumps out to you. Maybe what are your students struggling with the most that you've observed in your classroom? And so how can you pinpoint those challenges and bring music in through discussion or through listening activities to support students in that area? So, for example, anxiety regulation. If you are recognizing heightened anxiousness in your students, is there a calm playlist that you can create together as a group that you then put on during times where maybe that's getting a little bit rowdy and you need to calm them down? You put it on and you have them put their heads down on the desk and you do some breathing exercises, or really it's just in the background while you do activities quietly with a partner. Music can help support all of these areas, and through the professional development course that we've built, we learn how to understand the principles that underlie this and then apply music to support students and yourself. So speaking of yourself, the last point that we're going to make today is that it's really crucial to care for yourself before others. I'm sure that you've heard it if you've ever flown, but in the event of emergency, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. And especially for parents in the room, the virtual room, that can be a concept that's really hard to wrap your head around, because your instinct is to care for your child first. But a similar principle can be thought of in the classroom, where you do have these little souls that you're caring for in the time that you're with them. However, if you're not caring for yourself, are you able to show up as well as you would if you were prioritizing sleep or social connections outside of school, or your boundaries around when you leave class and whether or not you take your work home with you. So 2 pieces of recommendation that we want to give you is first, actually 3, take the day off. This is the biggest one that we've learned from teachers, is that the permission to take the day off really helps them realize how important self-care is, and that music teachers in particular are at risk for missing that because of the priority around performances or practices or trying to reach rehearsal benchmarks. But the reality is that if you're not feeling well, you need to take the day off to care for yourself so that when you do come back to class, you're really showing up for them. Another piece is to evaluate your current self-care practices. If you're thinking to yourself right now, what self-care practices? Well, maybe that's a good place to start, because I know for me, I crochet, and that helps me regulate my emotions, calm my body, gives my hands something to do. And it's something that I find keeps me stable when maybe I'm having a hard time mentally. So everyone has different techniques for self-care, and it's really up to you to evaluate your own. But one area that could be helpful in your evaluation is to think about boundaries. So as I mentioned, are you taking your work home with you? And maybe in principle, you don't want to. Can you set a boundary with yourself to prevent that from happening? Or are you feeling too stretched by social obligations that maybe you need a boundary to allow yourself a certain number and then learn to say no without feeling too much guilt or punishing yourself over it, because you know that that time to yourself instead is really important for you, feeling like you can be healthy and show up for your students. And that's how you can increase self-care, which in turn helps support student well-being in class, because a stressed teacher can affect students who can become stressed by your own stress. It becomes a vicious cycle. We can get stressed by our students, students can get stressed by us. So making sure as adults that we're trying to manage our self-care and our boundaries is a really important step to putting your own oxygen mask on first, so that then you can help others.
Juliana, if I can jump in as well and
Yeah.
say that I did not mention how well music workshop courses work for subs. So when
Yes, take that day.
yeah, not if you take a day off, but when you take a day off, just leave a music workshop course for your sub. It's ready to go. Just click play, and there's lots of materials to go with it as well.
Absolutely. We hear that all the time now from teachers who have taken the professional development course. They not only feel validated in taking a day off without guilt, but they also feel like they can continue the music learning in their absence because they have such strong sub-materials in music workshops, free resources. So those are the topics that we have for you today. And now we are open for questions. If there are any that you have, please drop them in the Q&A, and please make sure to upvote each other's questions. In the meantime, Sarah, I would love to ask you, as we get some questions in, what is it that you did when you were a teacher to help care for yourself? What are some self-care strategies that you applied when you
Oh
were
my
teaching?
gosh. I mean, I taught for over 10 years, and I can remember that first couple of years of teaching, and there was no self-care. There was absolutely none. I mean, to the point that I actually got very ill within those first couple of years, and it took me a long time to recover from that. And I taught and went to grad school throughout all of that. So yeah, for me, I think obviously prioritizing rest. I have to have a lot of sleep, and I have to be absolutely unforgiving in that, in terms of that being my big boundary. I have to get that rest. Exercise as well is essential whenever I don't exercise. And I mean, 15 minutes of exercise makes such a big difference to my mental health and keeping me going. So
Definitely. One of the pieces of feedback that we hear is how patronizing it can feel to be told as a teacher to just care for yourself better. So without tangible examples like setting boundaries, especially around the division between school and personal life, we want to make sure that teachers are not feeling like we're spouting the same self-care matters, but that we're really hammering in, because if you don't care for yourself, there is a ripple effect. Your health gets impacted, your students can be impacted. Music workshops materials are created in part because Amy Richter, if I could use you as an example, saw opportunities for her children's music program to be strengthened so that her children could really see themselves more in the music program and get a diverse experience musically. And is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. And I was
Awesome.
going to answer a question that isn't coming up, but we get it all the time. So I figured I'd just address it in this
Yes.
setting, which is how can it be free? Right? This is we get a lot of skepticism around a free program. How does this work? And that has been the commitment of our organization from the beginning, that our curriculum will always remain free of charge. And we have fundraised throughout the years. Currently, we're at 89% grant-based organization. And what we're trying to do is change that a little bit with our professional development so that we can get some additional funding that's a little bit more consistent, that then will help us build more free programming to support the curriculum that we offer to our teachers. Our program will always remain free of charge, our curriculum piece, and we're really proud of the work that we do, but sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to get a project completed because we're needing the funds to complete it. So but our teachers and our advisors have been invaluable of helping provide us with guidance and an incredible advice along the way of how to create our programming so that it works. In the K-8 setting, we also have a few high schools that bring in our programming as well, which is exciting. But if you're at all interested in learning more about our advisors, they are on our website, our cultural advisors, and soon we will be listing our hip hop advisors as well as our South Asia advisors.
Yeah, we do really benefit from their expertise. I think a big point of music workshop that really makes me wish that I had it when I was teaching. I left teaching for grad school around the time that music workshop started. So I missed a significant opportunity to utilize these materials in my own classroom. But there's something to be said about resources that are really vetted by experts and the feedback that we get, and also just our interest in not being the answer or assuming that we know everything, but really bringing experts in to help share what they think is really important for students to learn about each topic and how we can present it in a way that's culturally responsive and equitable and authentic. And that's what we see, is that students really love the authenticity of what they see in our videos. And so for anyone who's also interested in the professional development program, I would like to say that we also bring in that level of care because Music Workshop has such a strong mission just to make sure that music is for everyone and that all students experience music in some capacity throughout their school day. Oh, we do have a helpful question from Colin, who is a Canadian teacher. We have a lot of teachers in Canada and the US asking about an update to the Native American unit, because there are a lot of Canadian teachers. Some of the vocabulary and regions of Indigenous people of all of North America would be helpful, and not just in the US. So we do, a lot of people don't believe this, we read every piece of feedback that comes in. So once you complete a course and you want to download another course for your students, you have to provide feedback for us, because that helps us in seeking grant material or grant funding, and in helping us figure out what new material to create. So we have gotten this request for expanding our Native American unit so that we can include more Indigenous heritages, because we know that language in Canada is very different sometimes than language used in the US about music of different nations and tribes. So that is something that is in discussions. And we are always asking for more feedback in these areas. So definitely, when you leave us feedback, we read it. Thank you, Colin, for that question.
I'll also jump in and say that we are preparing for our next K-2 course to be the Native American traditional music as well.
Fantastic.
And this is a question from the chat, which is a more logistical one, but when preparing materials for subs, this one's from Marilyn, thumb drives, how much memory does the thumb drive need to prepare materials from one of the courses? Does anyone have an estimate for that? I know it depends on the course.
I want to say probably about 500 megabytes or maybe 1 gig. It depends on when you download the video. Well, there's 2 different resolutions of videos that we provide. One is for virtual learning. It just works better in learning management systems. So that has a little bit of a lower res, which means that the file size is smaller. That could be suggested, but I'm thinking probably 1 gig would work great, and you could probably get 2 courses on there.
For sure. Yeah, and I can imagine you could have a few set up just in case, so that if you don't know that you're going to need a sub and you need sub plans ready whenever, you can leave a thumb drive with our substitute instructions and multiple courses on it. The one caveat we have is that make sure that you're always coming back to re-download the course the next year so that you're able to get the most updated version, because we are always updating our materials. And as Sarah talked about with the K2 conversion, we have those versions coming out for courses. And so we don't want our teachers to miss out on these really valuable upgrades. So with any material that you put on a USB drive, we encourage you at the start of the school year or whenever you're going to reteach that lesson, that you check in and download the course so that you get the most updated version of it.
The other option, and your sub will probably thank you afterwards, is you can give them the URL and they can sign up for their own free account and then be able to use it whenever they need it. So
yes, definitely. And sometimes there are subs who show up to no sub plans, and our program is perfect because it's turnkey and they can bring it into almost any computer in any class for any subject and find a way in. Especially our Birth of Rock courses are such a huge hit with kids that if a substitute wants something in their back pocket for emergencies, if they're not given sub plans, feel free to communicate with your front office or substitutes that circle the building a lot so that you can share our opportunity with them, because again, it's free.
That is such a great point, Giuliana. I can say that from experience. I have gone into a sub gig before and had absolutely 0 lesson plans left for me.
Same.
Unfortunately, it was not even a music class. It was something else, but I had 25 minutes to prepare 4 different preps. So yes, I love the idea of just already having this at the front desk, like the front office, just for anyone who might need something in a pinch that is educational and fun and not just, a Disney movie or something.
Definitely. All right. Well, on that note, are there any other questions that we can answer for our amazing audience today? We are so thankful for you tuning in with us on your spare time. We hope that the start of your school year is either going to be amazing or already is.
And I just want to add really quickly, as you see, Giuliana and Sarah's emails are there. You can also email support@musicworkshop.org. If you need anything at all, you have ideas, you want to share with us a concern, we are always open and available to these conversations. And what we know to be true is you sharing the word about our program to your fellow teachers really makes a difference in how the word gets out about our program. So we appreciate it if you are willing and able to share about our program. We thank you.
And for anyone who might be interested in our next topic, sorry, Sloan, didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're fine. I
Uh,
actually just had a question for the
Yeah.
panel for maybe after you're done with.
Okay,
the thing.
totally. So our next webinar is going to be September 25th, not September 5th. That is my apologies. I somehow missed the 25th. You will definitely get an email about this at 4 p.m. same time. So it's 4 weeks from today, and it's going to be on music for well-being, principles and practices. It will be some of the really rich content from our professional development course, but this will allow you to ask specific questions in your own contexts, and it will be led by myself. So I look forward to seeing you on September 25th. Sloan.
Yeah, I actually was thinking a good note before we wrap up ties back into this because of the topic of our professional development, and the topic of our next webinar has to do with music for well-being. One of the topics we discuss within this realm is musical care, which is the idea of using music, leveraging music as a tool for nurturing your personal, social, emotional, physical needs. And I was curious to hear from the panelists how you practice musical care and how you leverage music for your well-being. And I'd be curious to see if anyone has thoughts about that in the chat as well.
It's a great question.
It is. I will say for me, it's all about music and dance, and that is definitely my self-care. I try to do once a week, hopefully twice, but really using music to drive motivation to be to do something physical and also make connections with my fellow dancers.
That's
Well,
a great answer.
I can say too that I actually play percussion in Formation, which is Seattle's all-female wind band. There's usually about 65 women and multiple women conductors, and we perform a couple of times a year. And that, for me, having that community of women, having that community of musicians, and being able to do that is, while it's a lot of work, it's, you know, it's actually a lot of soulful self-care for me.
Mine is similar. I'm in a band called Opening Act, and the idea is that we really want to keep people's expectations where they need to be, so that as a band, we can just be like the casual, fun trio that opens for others and then gets to enjoy the rest of the show. And so we are doing a tour this summer where it's the one-line tour, the Seattle light rail stations, and every 2 weeks we play at 2 or 3 different stations. And it's, for us, just an opportunity to play music. One of our bandmates is an astronomy professor and writes songs, and an incredible songwriter. And my other bandmate is a family doctor who also teaches at our university. And I think the self-care piece of it is as a music teacher, making sure that I have fun with music, because sometimes when I was teaching music, I lost that. And so to find that, and to find what styles of music really get me excited and interested in playing is so helpful. And I never thought that I would find this, and I'm just so grateful. I'm also seeing that singing with the symphonic choir is Lisa's happy place. Well, I love that. Sloan, what about you? And Amy Hall, what about you?
And adult choir for Carly. I'm that embarrassing, cringy person that you see in the car next to you who's singing their heart out like they're on stage in their car. That's me. In fact, I took the long way home last night just because I was feeling it.
I love that.
Yeah, I love to listen to music in the radio like Amy Hall, and more than once I've been late to going in places because I'm finishing the song in the car. Like Amy Richter, I love to dance, and I think the other thing that I really enjoy doing is going to concerts. It feels lovely to hear music you like in this electrifying in-person format, and it's also a really cool way to build community with people with similar interests and tastes, and it just always makes me feel really grounded and really excited.
Yes, that was a great question. And thank you for those in the chat who shared your happy music experiences and self-care choices. So on this note, this is a great place for us to bid you adieu.
I think we will start to wrap up here. So we do have just a couple things to take care of right before we say goodbye. If you are interested in getting that certificate of completion for taking this webinar, we want to be sure that you fill out the survey. So Amy Sloan has just dropped that in the chat for everyone. Let us know if you have trouble accessing that. It is only a few questions. Again, be sure to fill that out with your name and your email address. Also, there is a section in the survey where if you had a burning question and you just thought of it and now we're wrapping up, put that in there and we will be sure to get back to you by email. Another thing that Amy Sloan is going to drop in the chat for you that you'll want to grab is, and she just did it, is our course groupings handout. So that was earlier in this webinar, we talked about course groupings and we put that into a handy little PDF for you. It also has the reminder to check out our Spotify playlists. So you can download that from the chat as well.
I believe she also has the Musical Me handout for you that you can download and use in your class. And again, you can create it from Word or Canva yourself if you want to change the questions, really personalize it to your classroom. But this is our recommendation for a solid point to start with your students.
I will say too, we will have this recorded and we will put it out on multiple channels later as soon as possible. So if you are watching this at a later date, you can always contact us for getting those downloads if you like. Carly Adams asks, where is this PDF? So they are in the chat, both of them. You just have to click on them and it should download to your system.
No worries, Carly. We will work to make sure that you get those for sure. And to everyone else, thank you so much for taking your time with us. We are so thankful for your support, and we look forward to seeing you on September 25th to talk about music for well-being and how you can support your students and yourself better through music.
In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for being here. We see you, we appreciate you, and let us know if we can do anything else to support you. I hope you have one of the best years yet.